So the Springboks season has come to a close, 3 wins from 3 throughout the November Internationals. And in this video, I'm going to be picking the best Springbok player from each position in my opinion for the November Internationals. Some of these ones easier than others, but a few curveballs in there as well for the Springbok side. Now I should mention this is not my team of the year. That will be coming out in the near future and a few different names compared to this one. But jumping straight into it, in the front row, number 1, I have gone Oxnard. Now, he didn't have a huge amount of game time throughout the November Internationals, but he did start up against the Scottish, having a great performance in that game, and also got himself some decent minutes up against the English, about 32, before making his way from the field with the knee injury. Now, that man has had an extremely busy season, and I guess it was only a matter of time until he picked up some sort of injury, but Oxnard, when he's on the field, you can certainly see the difference in that Springboks front row. He helps set up the bomb squad for when they make their way onto the field, as normally by then the scrums have already been established and that dominance for the Boks is there. So Oxnard as my number 1. Number 2, I've gone Malcolm Marx. Now, of course, we did see Bongi Umbanambi starting more games than Marx, but Marx's impact off the bench can certainly not be underestimated. He was a part of a 7-1 this year, a 5-3, as well as a 6-2. So a little bit of everything for Malcolm Marx, but anytime he makes his way on the field, just like Oxnard, you know straight away. And his work in the breakdown, I think throughout November was better than in the Rugby Championship. The lineouts were accurate, so you got to have Malcolm Marx there as the number 2. Number 3, this is actually where I've gone Wilco Louw. Now, it easily could be debated. Thomas du Toit, I think, actually had a pretty strong November Internationals campaign as well. But I did like what Wilco Louw did up against the English. He was leading tack there at halftime in that game, and he really made the most of the time that he had out there on the field. When you are a prop for the Boks, you know you're probably getting 50 minutes max. So it's what you do during that 50 minutes that determines whether or not you get to play the next week. And for Wilco Louw, twice in a row we saw him in that starting lineup. So I have put him as the tight head prop. Moving on to the locking Joe, number 4. This one's not really debatable. I say it every time, but Eben Etzebeth as my 4. And number 5, I've gone Argeir Snyman. Now, of course, he didn't get as many starts as we saw for Franco Mostert. Mostert starting in the game up against Scotland, as well as the last match up against the Welsh. And to Mostert's credit, in that game up against Wales, he really stepped up. And it was a whole different standard of performance compared to what we saw up against the Scottish. But Argeir Snyman getting to start alongside Etzebeth for the first time ever in their international careers. He was great off the bench as well. When given those chances, his offloading is immense. So he's in the starting lineup for my best November side. Moving on to the loose forward trio, number 6. I've gone Siya Kolisi. Now, we did see him a part of that 7-1 split coming off the bench up against Scotland, but after that got himself the start up against the English as well as Wales. Just a workhorse, and really seems to be able to bring that 4-pack for the Boks up to that next level. Partnering with him, number 7, Pieter-Steph du Toit, and then number 8, I might as well mention him as well, Jasper Wiese. He was also a part of that 7-1 alongside Pieter-Steph du Toit, the World Rugby Player of the Year. If I didn't have him in that 7 jersey, there could have been problems, I'll be honest. But Eldrick Lowe, to his credit, didn't have a bad November International period either. It's just Pieter-Steph du Toit is Pieter-Steph du Toit. So it's very hard not to have him in any sort of best lineup that you are creating. He is a brilliant player. Breakdown-wise, he is on fire. Running the ball hard, tackling machine. There's not much that he doesn't do well when he makes his way onto the field. Jasper Wiese, I feel like he had a really strong November as well. Being able to make those meters with ball in hand, putting in some big hits. And it's great to see him now getting consistent minutes after that long suspension that left him out for some of the Rugby Championship. But since then, he's made his way back in, and he's pretty much confirmed himself as that Springbok. Number 8, moving on to the back line. Number 9, I've gone Grant Williams. And number 10, Handré Pollard. Now, this is a little bit more tricky, that 10 jersey that is, because we've seen Manie Libbok start, we've seen Handré Pollard start, and we've also seen Jordan Hendrikse start. So 1 game each, but Handré Pollard, out of the 3 of them, has got the most minutes, also making his way off the bench on a couple occasions, getting a majority of his kicks over, consistent when it matters, but he doesn't quite have that same attacking flair, I would say, as someone like a Manie Libbok or like Jordan Hendrikse. But in that game up against Scotland when Andre Pollard started, he actually really impressed me in terms of what he was able to create for that backline. And maybe that was a little bit because of who was around him, but also I think Pollard still deserves a lot of credit. Grant Williams as the 9. I don't think many people are debating this one. He's a super sub, but he got to start up against England, managed to step his way through and score himself a brilliant try. Throughout 2024, he has had really limited chances when it comes to getting to start matches, but I do hope in 2025 they do consider him more as a starter because he is good enough and he's got that pace to cut a side open early. They just love using him because of the fact he can play on the wing. He's perfect for the 6-2 split. But I would argue that maybe someone like a Kobus Reinach could also possibly do that same role, if not having Williams in the starting side, just dropping him out to the wing in the later stages, and then you replace the number 9. So I do think there is a way of getting Grant Williams in a starting side for next year, and I do hope Rassie Erasmus does consider it. Moving on to the midfield, no surprise whatsoever. Damien Dialendi, number 12. Jesse Kriel, number 13. Now, we did actually see a little bit more of a few other options in their midfield combo. Lukhan Yuam, Andre Esterhuizen. I felt like both of those two had some pretty good moments throughout November, but overall, just the class of Dialendi and Kriel. Kriel's had insane minutes in 2024, yet he never seems to slow down. He's often asked to start a game and then finish it 80 minutes later, and he's still going strong. Dialendi, the crash ball that he does offer on the inside. This is definitely a combo we will see in 2025, unless, of course, there is some sort of crazy injury that leaves one of these two out for those matches. Moving on to the back 3 now. This is where we get a little bit controversial, but I do feel like the reasoning behind it does make sense. And also, of course, this is just for November. For the overall team of the year that I'm doing for the Springboks very soon, it's different. But for now, number 11, I've gone Makazole Mapimpi. He doesn't get a huge amount of opportunities anymore. Kurtley Arendse, he did play 2 matches throughout November, the game up against England and also the match up against the Welsh. But I do think Makazole Mapimpi, if you're basing it off minutes played compared to impact made, I think that Makazole Mapimpi, pound for pound throughout November, was actually a little bit stronger than Kurtley Arendse. Now, for the overall year, I would give it to Arendse every day of the week, even though Mapimpi hasn't really put many feet wrong throughout 2024. But just for November, what he did up against Scotland, I feel like was definitely enough to at least give him the honourable mention in this lineup. So I've gone Makazole Mapimpi as that number 11. Number 14, Cheslin Colby. I don't think you can change that. Kanan Moody, he was actually really good in the game that he was given the chance up against Scotland. Great under the high ball. Hopefully gets some more minutes in the future, but with the depth that Rassie has been able to build, it gets extremely difficult to find any sort of minutes for those young guys. But he tried 50 players throughout 2024, so of course, eventually, Kanan Moody might get another crack. But Cheslin Colby, 2 tries up against the English, nomination for Rugby Player of the Year, and that was already before what he did throughout some of the November internationals. The man is world class, and I look forward to seeing him in the 2025 Springbok side. Number 15, little bit of a similar reason like I did for Kurtley Arendse and Makazole Mapimpi. I've actually gone Willie le Roux here as the 15. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. It's crazy to not have Apalele Fassi in this best 15 for the November internationals, and I agree. It seems strange not to have him, but I do think Willie le Roux had one of the best games we have seen of le Roux in the past maybe 3 or 4 years up against Scotland. He was really controlling that game from the back, getting his kicks right, wide cutout passes, breaking the line. It was just like he had been rejuvenated. So I've gone with him there. In the overall Springboks team of the year, I have got Apalele Fassi. That's a little spoiler, but I had to mention that because or else people think it's crazy not to have Fassi here. But I do think Willie le Roux does deserve the credit. I was a little bit surprised that he wasn't given any other minutes after a performance like that, but that also just tells you that Rassie has got a plan when it came to which players he would want to use in which games, and no matter how well certain players went, it wasn't going to change that plan. When he's got it, he's sticking with it, and I'm sticking with Villy LaRue for the best. November 15, but nonetheless, do let me know, of course, who you would change. Now, remembering, as the disclaimer, this is just for November. The 3 matches up against Scotland, England, and Wales. This is not including the Rugby Championship, not including the game up against Portugal, Ireland, Wales in June. All of those games out of the equation, but they won't be for the Team of the Year. When I do release that video, it's only a few days away, so of course, if you are new, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. But yeah, do let me know, who would you switch in? Who would you switch out? I feel like there are a few of these guys that could be taken out and replaced with other certain players that have gone very well throughout November. But I feel like at the moment, what we've seen throughout this year, and also particularly in November, is how much depth the Springboks have, and that they're going to be just as good, if not better, in 2025. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all for the next one.